Start. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. We are really excited because we've got 7 classes joining us from across North America right now. So I want to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out. We've got Miss Riles, grade 5s in Independence, Missouri. Hi, guys.
Hi.
We've got Miss Scala's grade 5 in Chaddsford, Pennsylvania. Hi. We've got Miss Zippers, grade 7 and 8 in Cumberland in Wisconsin, joining us in just a second. I think it's just a teacher now, but hi. Oh, you're coming in. Nice to see you guys. We've got Miss Parks, grade 6 and 8 in Fallon, Nevada. Hey, guys. There. They're excited.
Say hello. Say hello.
Okay, got the mic working. Okay, we've got Miss Brady's grade 6s in Festus, Missouri as well. A lot of Missouri today. Exciting. Hi, guys. We've got Miss Zendecki's grade 3s in Brevard, North Carolina. Hi, guys. Hi. And last but not least, we have got Miss Erickson's grade 2s in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. Hi, guys. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today is for our speaker. So we are joined live in Boise, Idaho by Heather Hayes. She is a research biologist and community science coordinator at the Intermountain Bird Observatory out there in Idaho. And so she works to both study birds and share the knowledge and her passion of them with a wide array of people. So she's really excited to join us today. We've done many hangouts with the Intermountain Bird Observatory before, but never one with Heather. So it's a real pleasure to have you with us today. And thanks so much. And take it away.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is my first hangout, and I'm super excited. If everybody can see me, hold up your binoculars. I'll check everybody out. All right. So I study a really cool bird. It's called a long-billed curlew. Can anybody see one behind me? Look how long that bill is. Can you guys imagine if your bill was that long? I mean, let me see if I can do it. Hold on. That's kind of long, huh? So anyway, before we get started with the presentation, I wanted to show you something really cool I like to show students. So this is a skull of a long-billed curlew. So I'll kind of match it up there so you can kind of see. And so the main reason I like to show you guys this is that this bill has evolved for a very special purpose, and that's for eating. Because if you can imagine, if this is the ground and that bill goes down in the ground, look how far that goes down there. So they're eating insects and worms when they're up in the Intermountain West, where it's dry, but then it's a migratory species. So they head down to California and Mexico. And so they're on the mud flats and out on the beaches, and they're eating sand crabs and little ghost shrimp and things like that. So the big takeaway, guys, is that these birds cannot hurt you with this bill. Because if they were to dive bomb you, which we call mobbing, what'll happen if they hit you? So they come down and they try to get you, their bill is going to snap off, and then guess what? They can't eat anything anymore. So they have a different defense mechanism. So they can't use their beak, and they don't have talons like a raptor either. And so we're going to talk about what that defense mechanism is here in a little bit. So let me switch over to my program here. All right, we are loading up.
Getting there. Got the species.
All right.
Oh, there we go.
Are we there? Okay. So like I said, this is a migratory species, and here in Idaho, it's considered a species of greatest conservation need, which means it's kind of on an important radar to make sure we're watching the populations, because these guys are in a decline in our area, especially here in Southwest Idaho. So this is the long-billed curlew, and I'm going to play you a call because I don't think you can hear what's coming through. Let me turn this up. So that is basically like a contact call that they use, and then like a flight song. So it's a really unique call. But take a look at that bird. Look at how crazy he looks. He's got these long shorebird legs and this really long, crazy looking neck and a long bill. And it kind of looks like it needs to be out on the shoreline with the other shorebirds. Well, these guys actually do hang out with other shorebirds, but these guys are actually the largest North American shorebird. You guys might be a little more familiar with the killdeer, which are smaller, and they nest on the ground and they pop off their nest when you get too close and they act like their wing is broken. But these guys love to use our grassland habitats. You can find them out on ranches among the cattle, because these guys nest on the ground as well. And the cows can keep the grass eaten down to the perfect level where the curlews can watch for predators when they're on their nest. So that bill can grow up to about 8.5 inches long, and they weigh about 1 to 2 pounds. So the males and the females exhibit something called sexual dimorphism, and that's just a big fancy term for when the male and the female are different sizes. So the male is in the front. He's a little bit smaller with a shorter bill. And can you guys tell how big that female is in the back? And then her bill is a lot longer as well. So I'm going to show you a little video how they use this bill. And this is out in California right now on their wintering grounds. So look how far down that curlew can get down in that mud to pick up bugs and insects and little crustaceans. They can really probe down in there. So you can see how if something happened and they broke that bill, they would not be able to eat successfully. So when you're a ground nesting species, you really have to be a master at camouflage, right? You have to be really good at blending into your surroundings. And that doesn't just go for the adult birds, right? It has to go for the eggs. When you take a look at those eggs, they kind of look like rocks on the ground. And then you're going to also see the chicks here. They're super camouflaged. And so when they're hatched, they already have their feathers and their eyes open probably within an hour or so. And then they're up and running around with mom and dad. Because if they stay in their nest, they're going to be like sitting ducks, right? So they have to be up and running to be able to run away from predators. So here's a fun little video of some chicks that came out of Wyoming. They're super cute. So remember how I told you these guys are in a decline? Well, I think one of the main reasons they're having issues is because of their behavior. So let me explain. When we're out here in the Intermountain West, well, here we have really big tracts of public land, and public land is a ton of fun. And so you can ride your ATVs, you can ride your horses, you can hike, you can target shoot. Out here we have little ground squirrels that they call whistle pigs. And if you have a permit, you can shoot them. So you're allowed to target shoot those, but you can do a ton of stuff out on the lands. So when you have all this human disturbance, there's bound to be trouble, right? And so I think what's happening is people don't understand the behavior of the long-billed curlew when a chick hatches. So this little chick in this picture is probably about 5 minutes old. And what happens is the parents become very aggressive and defensive as soon as the chicks are about to hatch, and especially right when they hatch. And so what happens is they'll dive bomb you, because remember I said they can't use their beak and they don't have talons. So they dive bomb you, and then they have a blood-curdling scream that they do to try to chase you away. So I'm going to play that for you right now. So can you hear how different that call is than their little contact call? This is a completely kind of panicked, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, get away from my kids. And so I think when people are out there having fun on the public lands, they're not going to see these little chicks. They're not going to see these little eggs because they're so camouflaged. And you don't have to be as close as 5 feet to the nest. You could be 100 meters away from the nest. And if an adult curlew sees you, guess what? It's going to come calling after you and try to chase you away. Not only that, if any other curlew in the area can hear that alarm call, guess what they're going to do? They're going to join in the fight, and they're going to rally up together, and they're going to try to chase that predator away. So that's another big takeaway, is to remember what that call sounds like, because curlews aren't the only birds that mob. You guys have probably seen mobbing already. Like from, if you see a red-tailed hawk or a big raptor fly by, you'll see a bunch of little tiny birds on its tail trying to chase it. That's exactly what's happening. That raptor probably got a little too close to a nest in a tree, had no clue, and guess what? Everybody rallied together to chase off that raptor. So this is a really cool part of our program that I'd like to invite you guys to be a part of. So we trap some curlews, and when we do that, we put bands on them for identification through migration, but we're also putting some satellite trackers on some of the birds. And so these are solar powered, and there's a little battery inside. So the sun helps keep that battery charged up. And so after we trap the birds, we'll start the banding process. And then what we do is at the end, when that's finished, we put the transmitter on. But we don't want to just slap on a piece of technology and hope the bird's good with it and release it, right? So we developed a way, strangely enough, that the curlew actually communicates with us if that transmitter doesn't feel quite right. Because, you know, like I said, we really want to make sure they're comfortable. So what we do is we put a little tiny camping tent up, and we put the bird inside the tent, and we see what it does with the transmitter on. So it's going to exhibit one of two behaviors. It's either going to sit down, or it's going to run around like a chicken with its head cut off. So what do you guys think it would do? I'll give you a minute to think about it. If that bird is uncomfortable, what do you think it's going to do? Let's see. They actually sit right down when they're uncomfortable. And so what we do then is we'll take them out of the tent, and then we readjust that transmitter and put them back in the tent and see if they sit down again. But if they're comfortable, this is what we want to see. We want to see that that bird doesn't care about the bands on its legs. The bird doesn't care about that transmitter on its back. All she can think about right now is getting back to her eggs. So there's a link to our satellite tracking map that you guys all will have access to. So your teachers will have this link that she can share with you, and you can check it while you're at school. You can check it while you're at home. You can check it 24/7, which makes this really cool. And so when you first pull the map up, it's going to look gray, but you'll see some icons on your screen at home or at school that allows you to change what the map looks like. So if you want it to look more like an atlas, like we're kind of used to seeing, you can do that. So when you scroll over each one of those dots, it represents one curlew. A little window is going to pop up, and it's going to tell you the name of that bird and when the satellite last sent the signal back and forth from the transmitter. And so if you zoom in on those dots, like you can see I did in the lower left-hand corner, you can start to get really close and see their tracks where they were all day long, which is super cool. So you can tell when they go out to the agricultural fields, especially if you change the map, you can tell, you could do a satellite map and see where the fields are. So you can see when they're out eating in the agricultural fields. You can see when they're heading to the water. So it's really cool to be able to track where they're going. And if you guys get on now, I didn't want to do a spoiler alert and put the map up, but you might see some migration activity happening this week, and check on some of our transmitter birds and see where they're going. So we have transmitter birds that go all the way up through Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, even into Canada. We helped a Canadian research team up there and taught them how to trap curlews. But you won't see the Canadian bird on this map. You would have to go to their map. So make sure you guys check that out and report back to me and tell me who's going where. So in the beginning of our study, we used to find birds in pieces like this one all the time. So when you guys see that, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see it? It's all torn up in pieces. You can see there's a wing, there's a leg off to the side, the head is up towards the top. I mean, that kind of, to me, looks like a predator got it, right? And so we're studying all these different hypotheses of what could be part of the decline, right? We look at predators, we're watching climate really closely, especially what can be happening in California. They always seem to have a drought going on. So we have a whole bunch of hypotheses. But every time we found a bird like this, our predator column was getting really, really, really big. So we started wondering, my gosh, you know, how are we going to work with all these predators? Well, we developed a partnership with the Idaho Department of Fish and Game's Wildlife Health Laboratory. And this place is super cool because it's their job to find out what killed animals. It's almost like a CSI for wildlife. And so they said that we could bring in our curlew pieces, or like if there was a full carcass of a bird, they said we could bring it in and they would x-ray it for us. So this is the first x-ray we got back. And all the light purple lines and bluish lines, those are bones. But check out what's in the center of that red circle. That's really bright white. And if you think about what might show up bright white, to give you an analogy, is if you broke your arm and you had a pin in your arm and you got an x-ray of that pin, it would be super bright white on the x-ray. So pins are made out of metal, right? Well, that's exactly what this x-ray is showing. There is metal fragments inside this bird from being shot. So the important thing is to know is these birds are illegal to shoot. And you guys probably know that illegal shooting is called poaching. And you can get in a lot of trouble. You can get fined a lot of money, and you can actually spend some time in jail, and you would have a felony for the rest of your life, depending on the circumstances. So these guys are protected like a lot of migratory birds are under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So when you're out there and you've taken your hunter's ed classes, you will have learned what it is you should and shouldn't shoot at. So it's really, really important to make sure you know your target. Since 2013, when we started transmittering birds, we have discovered that almost 50% of the birds that we put transmitters on have been poached in our area of Southwest Idaho. And so that is not a sustainable rate for this species because they are already in a 95% decline. And that's just in 40 short years that we have seen this decline in this number. So again, it's just really, really important to know your target when you're out there. Because now that we know through these x-rays that predators aren't the first issue for the birds, right? This bird was actually shot first, and then a predator came and scavenged the body. And that's why the body was in those pieces. And so my job is to educate as many people as possible about how cool this bird is and that it's a protected species. So we worked with the Fish and Game and a really cool conservation partnership out here called the Idaho Bird Conservation Partnership to put together this ad that highlights not only the curlew, but other bird species that are being poached, and letting people know, hey, listen, these are protected. And like the sign says, it's unlawful to shoot or harass threatened, endangered, or protected non-game birds. So this was a huge success for us to help in our outreach efforts. And it's going to be, it is in the Hunter's Ed manuals out here right now. And it's also going to be going into the regulations. So this is a really great way to get out and tell people about these birds. And I've also started teaching this very same course that you guys are seeing in Hunter's Ed classes, and that's been really successful. So I'm going to open it up to some questions so you guys can stop hearing me talk about my crazy love for these birds. So let me know what you guys think. Have you ever seen any of these? Because they are actually, there are some eastern populations of the birds as well.
Outstanding. And no, we love your crazy love for the birds. That's why we're all here. But I appreciate it. And let's dive right in. So Ms. Round's class, if you guys want to kick us off, any questions, go right ahead.
Oh, my bird. Go ahead, Jane. Go ahead. Sorry.
Come on a little closer. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, how are you?
Jane, answer.
Good.
Good.
Aiden, why do some birds have longer beaks? Why do some birds have longer beaks?
Yeah, good question. So why do some birds?
That's a great question. So you mean overall, not just curlews, right? But all sorts of birds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's an awesome question. So birds' bills are developed for eating very specific things, right? So your little tiny birds like warblers, they're going to have little tiny tweezer beaks, right? So they can get in and get little tiny bugs from tree bark. And then, of course, you can look at the curlew beak, right? Which we now know he digs down deep into the soil and the mud, bugs up. Let's think what else. Have you guys ever heard of a crossbill? They have a really unique bill that instead of meeting up together like this, it crosses like that. And the reason why is because it's specialized for pine cones. You guys know how pine cones are, right? The bird would have to really be able to get down in there. But what the crossbills can do is they can twist their beak open like that, and then it'll open up the pine cones to let it get the seeds. So the main reason so many birds have so many different types of bills is for what they're eating. Awesome question.
Cool. It's worth noting too, we do a lot of hangouts with other biologists, and whatever animals group you're looking at, the mouth tells you a lot. So if you look at your own mouth and you have some sharp teeth and you have some flat teeth, so you can crush seeds, you can cut through meat. It's very, very interesting. Great question. All right, Miss Scala's class, if you guys have a question, come on up.
This one.
How many birds do you study and which one's your favorite?
Oh, I get this favorite question all the time. I get to work with a lot of different birds with the Intermountain Bird Observatory. Most of the research I help is with the curlew. And I must say, they're probably one of my top birds because I spend so much time with them daily out in the field. Was your question like the other birds that I study, right?
Yeah, what other birds do you study? And then
Okay.
what's your favorite?
Okay, so I've been involved with the short-eared owls as well. There's a big citizen science project that I help with, and it's over 8 Western states, and we're trying to figure out why the short-eared owl is in decline. So we rely on the public's help, and even school kids like you could join in a project like that to help collect data. And so it's a really cool project. And then during the fall, I'm super lucky because I get to help out and coordinate all of our migratory bird research banding stations. So I get to go help band hummingbirds. And then we have a banding station on the top of a mountain, which is super cool. You guys can look it up. It's called Lucky Peak. And if you guys ever wanted to come visit us, it's all free. So you guys could come up, watch us band birds, take them out of the nets, and then we give you guys the birds to release back into the wild. So you could do songbirds, hummingbirds. You could go sit in one of our raptor blinds. It's a little tiny, kind of like a little hut that we sit in, and we trap raptors. So if we were to catch a red-tailed hawk or a Cooper's hawk, after we would do the processing, you guys would get to release the birds. So if you ever find yourself up here, oh, and owls too. We do owls at night. So you could come camp with us and you could go on the owl net runs and release owls. So I'm super fortunate. I love my job. I get to work with all kinds of birds.
Super cool. And I mentioned at the beginning too, so some of our past hangouts at the Lucky Peak Station are online, so you can actually watch them catch raptors in the hangout and release them, but much cooler to actually be there, so do get there if you get a chance.
Yeah.
Great answer. All right, Ms. Zipperer's class, do you guys have a question? Come on up.
Yep.
So did you have to go to college, and how long, if you did?
Oh, that's a good question. I get that a lot. Yes, I graduated. I used to live in Ohio. That's where I'm from. And I graduated from Kent State University. And my degree was in conservation biology because I didn't quite have an exact knowledge of what I wanted to work with. And that's why I chose conservation biology, because you can work with anything. You can work with mammals, birds, amphibians, I mean, anything. And that has been amazing because I've had so many cool jobs because of that. And so I was in school. It was, I actually did community college first because I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I did 3 more years at university. So I was kind of a non-traditional student. So in total, I was in school for probably about 6 years, but that's probably not the norm. Like you can go in and do a 4-year degree. But I also was working my way through. So you could pay for your school as you go, but you can also get school loans. So there's a lot of great financial ways to figure out how to make it happen. But my biggest thing I would suggest to all of you guys is if you get a chance to volunteer with something you're interested in, that's awesome. And that's how you get your foot in the door. And that's exactly how I got my job with the IBO. So I just started volunteering. I helped them collect data, and I did data entry for them. If they had an event and needed help parking cars, you know what I mean? So just anything you can do to get involved with something you like, because you might get involved with it and go, you know what? This isn't really what I thought it was going to be. And so now you've just kind of saved yourself a little time and you can move on to the next thing. But yeah, if you guys can volunteer, that is totally the way to go. Great question.
Great question. I also love the fact that you didn't actually just go straight from high school into university into finishing a multi-degrees, because we get a lot of really diverse stories from scientists, and a lot of students assume that scientists, you know exactly what they want to do when they're 4 years old and just do that straight through and got great grades the whole time. It's not the case.
No, no.
Excellent. All right, Miss Erickson's class, if you guys have a question, come on up. Huh?
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hi there.
My question is, why are the females bigger than the males?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of species that are like that. And if you think about all the work that she has to do, because she has to develop the egg inside of her, right? And she doesn't lay all 4 eggs at the same time. So she lays 1 egg and then another one develops inside over about a day and a half. And so, and then she's sitting on the eggs a lot, right? And so to help with incubation, being a little bit bigger covers those eggs. And so the male is really streamlined, right? Do you remember how much smaller he was in that picture? So he's got to fight off all the predators and the bad guys. So he's super streamlined and ready to go. But that's a great question. And I'll even show you. Can you guys see that? Yeah. So that gives you an idea how big the curlew egg is. So it's just a little bit bigger than a hen's egg. I'll put it in my hand. I don't know if that's easier to see the size, but they're really beautiful. And there's no chick in here. This was an unfertilized egg. But what's great is I get to have a real egg to show everybody how cool they are. So that was a great question. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. All right, Miss Parks' class, if you guys have a question.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
So our kids just went out to lunch.
Okay.
But I don't have any questions for you.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I hope they enjoy whatever they did get to see.
I know. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. All right, Miss Brady's class then, if you guys have a question, come on up.
Right there, they can see. My question is, what type of predators eat the curlew?
Great question, because my presentation is actually much, much longer, and I had to kind of bring it down into the 20-minute block. However, there's a lot of predators that these guys face out here. We have badgers, weasels, coyotes, prairie falcons, ravens, humans, of course, and snakes can get into the nest. So these guys have a really, really hard go of it because, like I said, they nest on the ground. And I didn't mention earlier is that the eggs will be incubated for almost a full month. So those eggs are on the ground for 30 days. So the adults actually have to share the incubation duty. So what that means is during the day, the female is with the eggs all day long while the male is out in the agricultural fields eating, and he's usually napping out a little bit. And then he'll come back and check on the female and kind of patrol the area for predators. But then when the sun goes down, all the females pop off the nest and they head to the agricultural fields, and all the males come back in and they incubate the eggs all night. So this shared parenting duty really helps them, because if they have to be on those eggs 24/7 so predators don't get them, and keeping the eggs warm, they don't get to be able to leave the nest very often. So by sharing it, just like your parents share the duties, with you guys, it gives the other parent a break to be able to go recharge and eat and get some sleep. And so that is a big thing for them to be able to keep warding off the predators. And like I said, when that alarm call hits the airwaves, every other curlew comes to help that curlew chase off anything that's coming. In fact, I've seen them chase off a coyote. Like there'll be about 20 curlews right on the tail of a coyote just screaming. And that alarm call I played for you guys was only one bird. So try to imagine what 30 of these 2-pound birds sound like when they're doing that blood-curdling scream. It makes your heart jump out of your chest. I will say that.
Outstanding.
Great
question, by the way, guys. Yeah, really thoughtful from all the classes, so we appreciate that. We'll finish off our first round of questions, and then we'll do a whole other one with Mrs. Zandecki's class. You guys have a question? Come on up.
What is your favorite part of doing research?
Oh, wow. Well, the favorite part when I first started doing it was just knowing I was out there collecting all this data to try to help figure out, what was going on with the decline of the species, right? Because the area that I started at actually used to have the highest population, the highest concentration of curlews in the United States. And now we have like the lowest concentration. So we knew that this decline was very serious. And so we're still collecting data, but now that we have been able to figure out that the poaching is likely the cause for the decline, I've kind of shifted in what I'm doing, and I'm doing more things like this. And this is kind of like education outreach, where there's probably a lot of you that have never even heard of this bird, which is not uncommon. Even out here, there's a lot of kids. I'll usually open up the class and say, hey, how many of you guys have seen this bird before? And no hands go up. So imagine now that I've educated all of you guys in all these different states who have maybe never heard of a curlew. And now hopefully you guys can help us spread the word about how cool this bird is, and that it's in trouble, and just spreading the knowledge. That is really how we get things done, is by working together as a community to try to help a species. So I'm really enjoying doing the outreach part right now, because I get to talk to kids, I get to talk to adults, I get to talk to people in the agencies like the Bureau of Land Management and the Idaho Fish and Game. So I really get to engage on a lot of different levels, and I see a lot of value in that. So that's a really cool question.
Excellent. And when we're done, just as the classes can follow up and learn even more, we'll pass along the Intermountain Bird Observatory link so you guys can check in on more science projects, all that good stuff if you're keen. All right, let's do a whole other round of questions, guys. Miss Rimel's class, come on up. Kick us off.
Hey.
Hi, my name is Kate, and my question is, how long do curlews live, and do the curlews use a tongue or suck the bugs out of the dirt?
Oh, great questions. So as far as how long curlews live, obviously in captivity, because there are some in captivity, I think I was reading one that's maybe 20 years old. But when they're in the wild, there's just so many factors, and it's kind of hard to put a number on it unless they've been banded. So like when I started banding birds, the curlews in 2015, we can at least tell how old the bird is from when we put the band on. We can't really get a good gauge of how old the bird is when we trap it. So that kind of makes it difficult. But I've heard different things online about maybe 12 years out in the wild from a banded curlew. But I'd have to dig a little deeper into that one. And I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Yeah.
It was how long the curlews live in.
So the other question was, do they use a tongue to suck them, or do they out of the ground?
That's a great question. Actually, when every time we had a curlew in our hands, right, when we're banding it, we noticed that this part of the bill on every single curlew had these little ridges on it. And I don't know if you guys can kind of see or not, but there's all these, there's all these little ridges, and we didn't know what those ridges were for. So we started doing some genetics testing on some of our birds, and that was just kind of like taking a little blood sample from the wing, and then we would take a cotton swab or Q-tip inside the bill. And so if we had the bill like this, we would just take the cotton swab just a little bit like down in there to get some cheek cells. Well, as soon as we did that, we discovered why the bird had those ridges. And that's because when the bill is like this, and we put the Q-tip in it, all of a sudden the tip of the bill started bending like this. And so we had no idea that the curlews were able to bend the tip of their beak. So do you guys see how that would be helpful when the bill is down in the ground? Let me see if you get a better image there. And then that part of the beak would be able to scoop up bugs. So they're able to scoop it up. And there's really great videos on YouTube of like them tossing, like they have their bills like this, they'll have a little crab here. And they keep going like this until it starts making its way down the bill. So they do have a tongue, but I think the majority of them getting the food in is being able to pick it up and then toss it up like that. And so if you guys want to see the video of the curlew that we discovered the beak bends, it's on YouTube, and it's called Bendy Beak Curlew. So it's really simple. The scientific term for it is rhinokinesis, but we thought it'd be easier to Google up Bendy Beak Curlew. So that was a really cool discovery.
Awesome. Let's go back to Miss Scales' class. You guys have a second question? Come on up. Hey.
Do you notice any plastic pollution in these birds?
Oh, that is a really good question, and I've started getting that question more because of that plastic issue that's everywhere now, right? So the thing with the curlews is they're not going to see something plastic and think it's food, because they're picking bugs off of plants, and then they're digging down deep into the mud, where a lot of the birds, like your seabirds that are scooping things up off the top of the water, you know, they might think it's a fish the way it's floating. Those birds, kind of like your albatross. Do you guys know what an albatross is? It's that big, huge white seabird, and they live for a really long time. Those guys are really struggling with plastic from the oceans and on the beaches. But you know what I do see a lot of when I'm working with curlews, and it hasn't affected the curlews in the sense of ingesting it, but I find a lot of balloons that are deflated with their strings attached out in the middle of the fields that I work in. I also work on a farm, and the farm is littered with balloons from people. And so we're trying to really educate folks that, you know, balloons are really bad for the environment. And so we try to encourage people to like maybe celebrate in other ways instead of using balloons, because that's usually what we do, right? We have a birthday party, we get lots of balloons, but unfortunately some of those balloons get away from us, and then they end up in a field, and maybe some other type of bird might see that as something that it might want to eat. So, so yeah, helping spread awareness about the plastic issue is huge too. So thank you. That was a really thoughtful question.
Yeah, we get a lot on plastics actually. So we spent all September doing entirely ocean plastics, and then it's something that keeps getting brought up in all of our hangouts at this point. So great question, and there's lots of really great ways you can contribute to helping that. All right, we're going a little long, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the last 4 questions. We're going to try and get through them as quick as possible. We'll start with Ms. Zipperer's class, and come on up, guys.
Okay, my question is like, what do you do like weekly? Are you out in the field most of the time? Are you in an office? Like, what do you do on your weekly basis?
On my weekly basis. Okay. So in the beginning, my first 3 years, I was mostly based out in the field. So I would spend anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 hours out in the field throughout the week. And then right around my 3rd year is when I started to really see the need to educate more people, because I would talk to people out on the land that were recreating and realizing how many people just didn't understand why these birds were mobbing them. Because I think what I mentioned before is I think people get too close to the nest, the birds start mobbing, and then the people will turn and shoot. So I really try to educate people why the birds act the way they do. And so now I'm kind of transitioning a bit out of the field work. I'm still trying to stay in it because I love it and I like being out with the birds and finding their nests. But like I said, the outreach now is taking up a big part of my time. And I love it. It's 2 different loves, and I'm very lucky that I get to do both.
Outstanding. So let's go to Miss Erickson's class. Come on up, guys.
Hey.
How many species of curlew birds are there? And are there any other species than the long-billed curlew?
That's an awesome question. And I think you stumped me because I don't know exactly how many species there are, but there are other species of curlews, and not just here in the States. In fact, there's a European, it's called the Eurasian Curlew, and he's in a lot of, they're in a lot of trouble too in Europe. And so, and curlews aren't the only ones in trouble, right? I mean, there's species all around the world that are in trouble. And so it's really easy for us to think about our home and where we live, but these issues are really, they're global. They're all around the world. So even the curlews out there are in trouble too. So we all try to collaborate together and come up with ways to educate people about the birds. But you know what? When we're done, I'm gonna Google up your question so I know how many species of curlews there are. So thank you for the stump.
I did. So there's 8.
Oh,
8 curlews
8.
around the
I was
world.
gonna say 9, but I wanted to double check.
Maybe we found a new one since Google was updated. No, could be.
I like it. Thanks for checking, Jesse.
Yeah, of course. All right, Miss Brady's class. Come on up, guys.
How long until the baby curlews can fly?
Oh, that's another good one. So I think from what we've seen, because we're in so many different places and studying different places, we don't always see the full cycle. But I think between maybe 6 and 8 weeks, because the funny thing is all the females gather up about 3 weeks before they're to leave to go back to their wintering grounds in Mexico and California, and all the girls leave together. Like their long lost friends, they say, hey, you ready to go on vacation? And they all leave. So they leave the dads behind with all the chicks for the last part of the summer. And so then they're all going to fly out pretty much together. How the end of the season goes. It's all the males and the chicks at the end. And so I have probably seen one, what I'd say teenager curlew fly before. So I don't get to see it very often, but that's a really good question too.
Awesome. And then we'll wrap up. By the way, way to go, guys, and getting those in really quickly. I love it. We'll wrap up with one last one from Miss Zandecki's class.
Have you ever studied other animals than birds?
Yes, I have. And that's due to the fact that I got this conservation degree. It opened up many doors for me. So I've studied small mammals. I've studied birds. I have studied insects. I worked with aquatic insects. So a whole host. And there's a part of me that feels like I'm not done. I mean, I'm really loving birds and working with birds. But as you guys know, I mean, there's just so much to learn every day. Every day, it's like I want to learn something new. So I don't know where I'll end up, but it's been an awesome journey.
Outstanding. What a wild ride. We hope to have you back with something new. I'm excited to see what's next. Heather, before we wrap up, is there any last messages you want to share with classes about where they can learn more, how they can get involved, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, you can definitely head to, let me see, can I share my screen again? Would that be okay?
Go ahead.
All right, let me put this up, and then it might give the teachers an opportunity to have the information here. Is that showing up for you?
Perfect. Yes.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much social media the students are doing, but we are on Facebook at Intermountain Bird Observatory and the Curlew Crew. And we also do Instagram. So I know a lot of middle schoolers do Instagram. So that's just the photo site. So, and you guys know what it's like. You click a like or a share, and then all of a sudden you've just educated all your friends, and your friends might think it's cool, and then they might all hit like and share. So if you want to hit us up and look at some awesome pictures, check us out. You can always email me. I love getting emails. I answer them when I can. My field season's usually pretty busy. But I love getting questions. And the tracking map, don't forget to check out that tracking map and let me know who you're seeing going where, because it's a lot of fun to stay engaged with that. And then you can also watch in towards the end of June, you're going to see the curlews migrate back to their wintering grounds. So this map you can really stay engaged with all season long.
Outstanding. We're wrapping up the day for some of the classes, so what we'll do is I'm going to demute every class that's here's microphone. So if you guys could just join me in saying a huge thank you to Heather for joining us today. So Ms. Rimel's class, Ms. Scala's class, Ms. Zipper, Ms. Endecki, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank Heather. Awesome. To all our classes, I'll send all that info in an email. To Heather, thanks for joining us so much. We look very forward to having you back in just 2 days. We'll see you soon.
Yay!
All right.
Thanks.
Have a nice